Hey, what's going on? I've been working on a couple games on the side in between finalizing the sound effects for Galactic Maverick. Now, audio really isn't my forte, so it's taken me a couple of weeks just to gather up the sound effects. I ended up going to sound effects packs online and stuff, and anyway, it's quite a long story, but I'll save that for the Galactic Maverick devlog update. This one I'm going to show you now is the L game. Edward De Bono developed this game, designed this game originally. It's intended to be like a board game where each player has one L piece and one coin. The coin is an optional movement, but the L piece has to be moved, or you can pass your move, right? You can skip your move. But the objective is to maneuver your pieces in a manner and a position such that your opponent can't make any movements. Okay, and then you've won, or whether there's a draw. And the main objective of this game is really is to teach you how to think and hold abstract thoughts and enhance your lateral thinking ability. It's a really cool game. It's very easy to reproduce. Well, I say it's very easy to reproduce. I chose Three.Js to build it out in, to brush up on my Three.Js skills. I'm always picking projects just to keep up the practice, game design and a little bit of development, keep myself sharp. So I do have future plans for this. There are some ideas I've got in terms of the game assets. I'm going to make a really nice environment. It's all about the environment with this, the aesthetic, the ambience. And I was thinking about making like really special game pieces that could be traded or purchased, or, you know, you could, if someone had a really nice L piece that you wanted or whatever, they could stake it. You could have competitions, because it's going to be a 1v1 thing. I'm going to use WebRTC, I think it's called, to do matchmaking, peer-to-peer matchmaking at first over the web. So yeah, it's a bit of an experiment. I was thinking even could make NFTs out of the L pieces and the coins eventually or something, make it a Web3 game. I don't know, we'll see where it goes, but for now I just wanted to actually build it in Three.Js and see what it's like. And where I thought it was going to be really easy, it certainly wasn't. And I'll show you a couple of the trials and tribulations here. One of the biggest things initially for me was this. I wanted to ensure that the pieces always rotated above the board. Now, it seems quite straightforward when you're thinking about it, but when you put it into practice and you have all these conflicting axes and you have quaternions and Eulers, you've got the axis, the world axes, the object, the local axes, you've got mesh, then you've got 3D object, then you've got groups, and then you've got tweening, and they've got their own axes, or they're using, one's using quaternions, one using Eulers. It's really confusing at first. And I had this problem where it would start rotating underneath the game board if you had rotated it or flipped it, because you've got to be able to flip it vertically, flip it horizontally, and rotate it. And I had real trouble keeping track of whether because if it's been rotated, then the axes have changed, right? So if you then go to flip it and turn the axis has changed. So it was rotated on the wrong axis, and it was solving this puzzle was harder than playing the game itself. It was mind-bending, but I got there eventually. And what I did was, to solve it, was I actually made a check to compare the axes to the world axes and see which ones are in parallel. I think it's the world Z axis is the one I used to reference, so I know the orientation of the piece at all times, and then I can make sure that when I flip it or rotate, flip it predominantly, because rotate it wouldn't send it through the board, but flipping it would. And I always want it to flip above the board. So that was a nightmare, and I got there eventually. Let's see if I can quickly plug it out. My code at the moment is it's like a functional programming. It's not, I've only got a couple classes going on. I haven't really, because I've just been building it from scratch. This is one that I didn't put pen to paper before I started doing it. I just started coding it, throwing the pieces in there. So check if flipped. Is axis aligned here? Yeah. So here we are. This is where I have the world axis vector, the local axis vector, and then I compare them and check if this. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm checking if it's parallel with where it is, what it's parallel to. Yeah, so I can pass in whichever axes I'm comparing. Yeah. This has been the amount of functions I've had to create for this. I couldn't believe it. I thought this was going to be so simple. Oh, here I am using. Sorry, I'm using this. I had booked this up earlier. So this is bounding volume hierarchy, right? And this was they have a thing. It's to speed up raycasting and enable queries against Three.Js meshes, right? And I was using. I was trying to use shape intersection here, where it detects the intersection, and I created colliders, these little box colliders on the grid. So they're just geometry cubes that I stuck in the center of the cells, and then detected and then I wrote. Well, before I was using BVH. Oh crikey! Oh God, go back. What am I doing? So before I was just using this, trying to create these I'm trying to create collision meshes essentially around the boxes, but it just wasn't working. It wasn't the right tool for the job. So eventually I decided to make collision boxes here, little cubes. This is just a wireframe helper for me to see what I'm doing. But little collision cubes inside the cells, just half the size of the cell. And here I'm using bounding box, but obviously the problem with the bounding box is that it's a square, right? It goes all the way around. So the bounding box is out of, all this part here is also bounding box. So it was overlapping and not allowing me to place it where I should be able to place it. So what did I do? You see these things here? These are being left behind because I am not translating them yet with the piece. But I went into Blender and I just added collision. I added meshes inside the L piece and the coin to act as collision boxes within the piece. So they're smaller and they have their own bounding boxes, right? So you'll have one bounding box that's long and one that's a square, and that allows me to do accurate detection as to whether it's either overlapping another piece or it's occupying a cell. And that was my solution in the end. Obviously now I'm testing it here, whether they're translating when I place it, they're moving the inside mesh as well. So like this is I'm just making it into a stone here. I'm going to make some nice stones and I'm going to make the first version of it quite zen and have like a water feature. What am I doing? Yeah, so let's, yeah. And then I have the colliders inside, see? So there's the colliders in there. Right. Same for the coin. So the coin and colliders there. Yep. Nice and simple. And all I do is name them collider, and then I just do that in the code. When I'm initializing the scene and I'm loading them, I load model with colliders. So anything that's called collider is a collider. Obviously, I put that into a separate array and send that back. So I send back the game piece and the colliders, right? I set up the colliders and they follow the game piece around, and I use those. So mark piece cells occupied. Whichever colliders are crossing paths with the cell colliders, I mark it as occupied. Quite straightforward, really. So yeah, I solved that. I solved the collision issue, and now I have the ability to place the What about moving it around? I think I've skipped that, haven't I? Yeah, I didn't really talk about that. So moving the piece with the mouse was also a big problem. At first I had it moving like that, so it would go sort of going grid cell to cell and snapping, but then later on I let it just move freely with the mouse pointer, and then once I could detect where it could or couldn't be placed, and it was more accurate. But then I had this bug. I think I'm going to demonstrate it here. Here's me trying to recreate it. Is it? No, this is me just implementing camera reset. So I had this bug where it's going to happen now. If I was moving the mouse when either the camera was resetting, or I press reset game and I had a piece selected and I was moving the mouse, what would happen is it would place the piece, but then teleport it to wherever the mouse was, and it would go out of bounds. It would go where it shouldn't go. I'm gonna get it in a second. It's gonna happen. Where are we? Come on, let's have a look at this bug. So if I moved the piece over an area that it could be placed in, and it was flagged as able to be placed, and I pressed the right click to place it, but then move the mouse really quickly at the same time, it would put it down to place it, but then move the piece. I'm trying to recreate it here. There you go. See? Again, now I'm starting to get the hang of it. When I was 18, 19, I worked as a game tester for Sega and for IDOS for I think 3 or 4 years in total. There you go. Look at that. So you've got to recreate it. You've got to just smash buttons, and then you've got to figure out what's happening. And obviously it was because it's obviously my fault, but the tween was continuing. So it would perform the action, and then the animation would continue after the action was performed. And so it would teleport back to where it was moving and still be placed on the board because the position had been lowered onto the board. Yeah, disaster. Took me a while to figure that out and finally sorted it. And now, now it works quite nicely. So here's my little game so far. But as I say, I'm going to make this a water feature. I want this grid. This grid at the moment is just the standard Three.Js grid helper, so that's not going to be in game. I'm going to make a shader for this to sort of glow or something. And the same with these. This is just an outline pass to outline the objects. But what I want to do is, instead of the outline pass, is just have it, when you move your mouse over it, it will sort of have like a shimmer, like it will gleam, you know, like a bit of light going over it, a bit of, so you know that's your thing. It's going to be nice and subtle. And the first environment I want to make, I love water in environments in games. I love the sound of rain. I'm one of those people. I listen to those hours of rain sound and all that, running water. So I'm going to have a water feature, and I'm thinking of having these as just nice stones. Put some designs in them, maybe make it look really nice, and that'll be me practicing my sculpting, getting up to scratch with my sculpting, because my 3D skills take a hit every now and then when I'm developing software for my job and I'm developing games as well. So it's like the 3D skills take a hit, and I like to keep them up to scratch. So I'm going to do some nice objects for this, make the environment really nice, maybe bring in some rain, some snow, you know, stuff like that, weather, get a little weather system going. Those are my plans for it anyway. That's that for the L game for now. I'm really happy with it, really happy with it. It works nicely. I can flip it every which way. Yeah, lovely. The this mesh is the old mesh. I can see the problem in the geometry. I can see that line there. Can you see that? It's really annoying me. There's a line across here because of the bad geometry. Well, it's not a problem. I just threw it in here. This is all going to get sorted out. And what I'm going to do is then bake the sculpt onto the lower poly mesh. And yeah, so that's that for now. The other one is a spinner, a slot machine type thing, but again in Three.Js. So I'm just making my own slots game, and it's going to be a 5x5, but they're going to be square 3D objects, all in 3D. So it's not like a normal reel. It's not a circular reel or anything. I'll show you in a minute. Anyway, if you click through to the next video, I'll put it up. Once they're uploaded, I'll put it up at the end of this video right now. I'll put up that spinner game and Galactic Maverick's latest devlog as well. So yeah, stay tuned. I've set up a Patreon now as well. I realized the utility of it because as I'm making things, I can actually put scripts and assets up there as well for people to download. And let's face it, I need to be doing this and getting, I don't know, some kind of base of followers who are interested in what I'm doing and want to support me, because I have got a lot of my own games I want to make. You know, I really want to see them made. I've really thought about this, and like there's a handful of games I really want to get made in my lifetime, and I'll be happy if I see them come to fruition. I'll just be satisfied with that. So, you know, I've got a really good idea for a first person shooter, so that's a big development, and an action RPG as well that I've written this whole story for. That's really good, but again, big development. I've got a really unique idea for PvP on a mobile. Don't want to say too much about it, but I'm gonna actually tackle that one next myself. The other ones need probably a team of people. I don't know. So I've got to start something rolling. And I thought if I make the Patreon, what I can do is obviously provide assets and scripts, and it would also allow people to communicate with me and request content, ask questions, and that will then generate more projects and content. It'll be a positive, creative feedback loop. So yeah, Patreon link down below. Like and subscribe and all that stuff that everybody says, you know the drill. And yeah, check you later in the other video. Check out the spinner video. Cheers. Thanks for watching.